Okay, once you've got all of the bolts Loctited down in and tightened up, you're ready to reassemble the light tower itself. Okay, another thing that I like to point out too, this can be a little bit of a hassle when you're putting one of these together. The alignment of the Mickey Mouse holes in here, we set the mid plate up so that it would be if the lamp tree was lined up. But please do a quick visual of those to make sure that they do line up, that the two smaller holes are to the rear and the one larger hole is to the forward. Then just by fishing the wires up through the correct hole. Again, if you have a partner, it does help a lot. I cheated getting the lamp tree up here because I'm old and don't want a broke back for Christmas. But it does make it a lot easier with a second guy for some of this heavier moving of this top portion. Again, take as much of the slack as you possibly can out. And then the one thing to really watch under here is that you do not pinch these wires. When you torque the bolts down, they will crush them, they will short, and you will be doing this all over again with a new mid plate and a damaged $800 slip ring. Another thing that I actually did that is a mistake on this one, I will block this up so I can redo this. These do come with two bolts to hold all of this together under here. You will need to remove those. Those will actually be bolts that you put through when you reattach the mid plate. So makes it a little more difficult when you got all of this back on top, but they do have to come out of there. A good wood block is always very handy doing one of these. Again, this will let you see too that these wires going up through there, you do need to make sure that these do not get pinched laying down in here somehow. Okay, once you've got this kind of lined up and the wires up through that first portion of the hole, you can go ahead and release that bolt that you put in there. That'll allow you more movement of the rotation platform. This will allow this mid plate or this platform to move independently of the lamp tree. Makes it a little easier when you're going to line this up. Again, roll your actuator up out of the way, and then you'll just want to visually line this up. The bolt is your key. You'll actually feel it drop, and then with a flashlight you can actually look down in there and watch the wires go clear down through the slip ring, making sure none of them have laid over to the side and been pinched. Okay, after we get this lined up and the wires are clear, one thing that'll help you, sometimes it's kind of hard to get these bolts lined up. Once you take those two keeper bolts out, any of this can kind of free spin it in there. What I like to do with the world famous command light screwdrivers, if you go ahead and place like 2 or 3 of those down through the holes to get a depth, you're about that deep or so, then you can go ahead, that'll help line up your holes a little bit, and then you can go ahead and start one of your longer bolts in and just go ahead and turn it with either your hand or the wrench till you can feel it bite some threads in there. Once you get a couple of those in there, you'll be pretty well set as far as the alignment of those. I'll go ahead and put a few turns on them just to make sure that the 2 initial bolts have purchase thread and that they have not cross-threaded them. As soon as you get them to that point there, then the next thing you'll do, you can go ahead and remove your little screwdrivers or whatever you're using to line those up. Go ahead, route your box back through under the mid plate. And then go ahead and put your 3 shorter back bolts in. Sometimes a little mallet will also help you get those down through all of the different rings. Again, there's not a lot of difference on the length of the 2 bolts, but if you put the longer bolt in the shorter hole, you will definitely snap it when you go to torque it down. Once you get those down and in, then I go ahead and I tighten these down. Again, I'll just barely snug that center one in. I'll go ahead and drop the longer bolt directly across from it. Go ahead and snug that one down. And then you should be well enough lined up that you can go ahead and snug down the, tighten the other two recess bolts. Nut driver helps here too. You can go a little quicker with that, or like I said, a power tool is always your good friend on one of these. Okay, got those back 3 snugged in, the recessed ones with the shorter bolts. Again, now you'll go ahead and place your junction box. What I'll normally do is go ahead and just put a real small bead of silicone around those 2 holes coming up through the through that Mickey Mouse ring and the sprocket. If you don't have silicone, that should make a good enough seal. You'll be using your original mid plate and your original junction box. That silicone should make a seal. So I wouldn't really worry about it if you didn't have silicone. If you do, it's always nice to seal that up. Again, place this through. And then I will usually go ahead and route my wires up through the 2 holes. Again, noting the holes are to the rear of the 2 mounting bolts. Don't get that flipped around or you'll be playing in silicone. Again, this guy will just go ahead. Make sure you're keeping tension on those so they line up right, and just kind of visually line those up with the holes. You can grab your remaining 2 long bolts. Feed them through that junction box. And then just go ahead and tighten down your remaining 2 bolts in the front and then the 2 bolts in the junction box. Okay, after we've got all the wires reattached, we'll again have to replace this actuator. We can go ahead and fold it back down now that we've got everything else tightened down in here. Just go ahead and feed your wires back through your quick connector here, or your watertight connector. Some of these, if they're crunched down a little bit, you just take a screwdriver in and kind of open them up a little bit to get the wires back through. Go ahead. Nice thing on these is you'll have a crunch point where this had originally been. All you have to do is just go ahead and pull it back into that point there, and you'll be at the exact same length as you were before. These do not have to be overly tightened, just nice and snug. Again, this will go back in. This was the 2 of the wires that did not match the other one. So again, it will be brown wire to black and blue wire to green white. So green black to brown, green white to blue. We do have an upcoming video that we're going to do that will go through the different light towers, describing all the wire colors, the voltages they carry, and also the functions that we do have planned, just haven't got it made yet. Again, if you get frayed edges, go ahead and strip them off. Better to start with a nice clean wire. Okay, once we've got all of these in there, I go ahead and just put a couple of wire ties like we did back down below. Keep everything nice, and then 2 bundles, 1 in, 1 out. At this point here, what I generally like to try and do now too is to go ahead and repower up the light. I've got all my wire connections done, so there's no chance of anything shorting or whatever. Just do a real quick test on this before I get this junction box sealed up. You can test the upper actuator just by watching that. Make sure that it extends when it raises up, it retracts and it goes there. It's also very handy to use it to line up to get your bolt through. One thing you may find too, I always like to put a block up here so I'm starting with the lamp tree up. It doesn't require it to be retracted where it would be in a lockdown position. This gives you a little bit of movement and still being able to line up your bolt on that. The only things really that are controlled up above here would be the strobe, if it has one. If you do not have a strobe, you can always do a voltage check up at the pins. There's 2 pins up there, a blue, white, and a green. Blue, white is positive, green is negative. You can just do that as a quick check by hitting the button and making sure you get power on and off with that. The lamps, I've got this one hooked up 110 now because it's on a table. These are 240 lamps, so I won't be able to actually turn them on, but I can hear the relays click in there as I activate the buttons. I'm just making sure all of my wire connections are good. Rotation is down below, so I won't check that till later. It has nothing to do with this upper portion here. Upper actuator we've already checked. Lower actuator again is down below. So everything up here is checked out okay. Backlights, will have to be up above safety limit for it, but everything here looks like it's wired correctly. Everything's activating good. I'll go ahead and seal up this box and then get my actuator back in. Okay, again, there's nothing really moving in here. You just want to make sure that all of these wires lay down nice. None of them get pinched when you replace the cover on it. And just go ahead and set your actuator up. Get the top of the cover on. Just go ahead and tighten these guys down. Then we will go ahead and get the bolt back into the actuator. Again, you will just kind of line up the 2 holes through the bushings by extending that out. You'll be able to see when they're fairly close enough to get your bolt back through. Now I should have a fully movable tower at this point. Go ahead and raise your lamp tree up a little bit. You can get your block out of there. And we'll just go ahead and reapply the wire ties down here. Put this cover on, put your top dust cover back on. Your end wraps. Another point too, when we were looking for the scoring, this is what you'll see as that scores into it. There'll also be usually the chain mark on the bottom of that. Please order these when you order a new mid plate. Tell me that it is cut into that, and we will send you a replacement set of covers. Nothing worse than doing all of this work and still having it look like it got hit. So your new covers just slide on very simply, and then they'll just line up with the existing holes on it. And you go ahead and tighten all of that down, and it should be good to go. Okay, again, just to recap the things that I really watch out for. Number 1, on the mid-plate bolts, make sure there are 5 long, 3 short, that you get the 3 short into the recessed holes. In the wiring, there's a possibility there could be 2 reds and 2 yellows. One red carries 110 volt AC, the other one carries positive 12 volt DC. Just be very careful that you get those back going up. So the 110 volt goes to the lamps, the 12 volt goes to the rotation motor. Another thing, when you're putting the rotation platform and the lamp tree back onto the slip ring wires, be very careful that those go up through the holes. It's so easy to get those to lay over and get folded in and then pinched when you bolt it down. That will cause a short, I guarantee you, and it will cause a dead short against the ground of the chassis. It will 110, it'll blow your breaker. 12 volt, you'll throw sparks. You could also end up damaging some components in the main electrical box. Again, just safety's paramount. Always use glasses. If something looks too big, too heavy, get somebody else to help you. I've wrestled these things around for many years. I know the best way, and I'm trying to show you the best way to do these and come away so the light tower's fixed and you come away healthy and happy. Thank you.